Imagine opening your eyes for the first time in a place you were never meant to leave. No hospital, no birth certificate, no record that you ever existed. You are born behind electric fences, surrounded by armed guards. In a valley hidden deep within the mountains of North Korea, you don't know what freedom is, you don't know what choice means. And you don't know that the world beyond the barbed wire even exists. Your earliest memories are not of warmth or safety. They are of hunger that never goes away, of screaming voices barking orders, of bodies collapsing in the dirt and never getting back up. By the time you are 4 years old, you are forced to stand shoulder to shoulder with thousands of prisoners, barefoot on frozen ground, watching people executed in front of you. The guards call it education. They say it is meant to teach you how to live. By 6, you are no longer considered a child. You are a worker. You push heavy wagons through mines. You labor until your hands bleed. And if you slow down, you are beaten, not because you did something wrong, but because pain keeps people obedient. By 14, you are tortured, not because you committed a crime, but because someone related to you thought about escaping. This is not a story from the distant past. This is not a rumor spread by enemies. And this is not a movie. Hidden deep inside North Korea exists a vast system of political prison camps the government insists do not exist at all. According to state media, these camps are fabrications, lies invented by foreign powers. Satellite images are dismissed as forgeries. Survivors are branded traitors, but the evidence tells a different story. High-resolution satellite photos reveal enormous compounds surrounded by electric fences and watchtowers. United Nations investigations document decades of consistent survivor testimony. Former guards and officials who defected have described the camps from the inside, confirming what the regime denies. These camps are known as Kwanliso, political prison camps. They are not prisons in the traditional sense. There are no trials, no judges, no release dates. People sent there are not meant to be punished and released. They are meant to disappear. North Korea operates under a policy known as Yinjuoji, guilt by association. If one person is accused of political disloyalty, the punishment does not stop with them. Their parents can be imprisoned, their children can be imprisoned, even their grandchildren, including children not yet born, can be condemned to life behind wire. Entire bloodlines are erased for a single accusation. Camp 14, officially called Kechin Internment Camp, lies roughly 80 kilometers from Pyongyang. It is hidden in a remote valley, far from foreign eyes, and surrounded by mountains that make escape almost impossible. Among all the camps, Camp 14 holds a unique and terrifying distinction. It is classified as a total control zone. That means no one is supposed to leave alive. From the moment prisoners arrive or are born, their lives are reduced to two things: fear and labor. The camp is engineered for absolute domination. Guard towers line the perimeter, each with shoot-to-kill authority. Electric fences hum day and night. Inside the camp, informants are everywhere, in barracks, in factories. Even among children, trust is dangerous. Silence is survival. Rules are posted on walls, memorized and enforced without mercy. Obey immediately. Report all suspicious behavior. Never steal food. Accept punishment without resistance. Break a rule, and the consequences are swift. Beatings are common. Torture is routine. Public punishment is designed to make examples out of bodies. This is not a system where torture happens sometimes. Torture is the system. Former prisoners describe being forced into stress positions for hours, arms twisted behind the back, legs locked in place until collapse. Others recount being suspended from ceilings, burned, or submerged in water until the point of suffocation. Food is deliberately scarce. Meals consist of maize and thin cabbage soup, served every day. Year after year, there is no variation. There is no enough. Fail to meet your labor quota, and your rations are cut. Fail again, and you may never be seen again. Protein does not exist in the camp diet. Rats, frogs, and insects become valuable sources of nourishment. Prisoners fight over them. Children learn to hunt them. This is not neglect. Hunger is a weapon. And into this world, Shin Dong-hyuk was born. His parents were prisoners who had been allowed to marry not out of love, but as a reward for obedience and productivity. The regime controlled reproduction inside the camp, deciding who could have children and when, from birth. Shin belonged to Camp 14. He was raised without affection. Family bonds were intentionally dismantled. Parents and children were taught to monitor one another. Hunger was used to turn relatives into rivals. To Shin, his mother and brother were not people to trust. They were competitors for food, for survival. At just 6 years old, Shin was sent to forced labor. There were no classrooms, no lessons about the outside world, only work sites, mines, factories, fields where children labored alongside adults. Mistakes were punished immediately, or on movement. A moment of exhaustion, a missed quota, all could lead to beatings. Public executions were not rare events, they were mandatory gatherings. Every prisoner was forced to attend, including children. Guards wanted the message burned into memory. This is what happens when you disobey. For Shin, watching people die did not feel shocking. It felt normal. Death was part of daily life, like hunger or cold. One of his earliest memories was watching prisoners executed for stealing food. Hope was dangerous. Curiosity was dangerous. Thinking for yourself was dangerous. But the most dangerous force in Camp 14 was hunger, because hunger could make you do unthinkable things, and soon it would. Hunger does more than weaken the body. Inside Camp 14, it rewires the mind. It teaches you to measure people not by love or loyalty, but by how much food they stand between you and survival. It turns neighbors into threats and family into obstacles. And over time, it makes betrayal feel less like a choice, and more like instinct. When Shin was 14 years old, he came back from forced labor one evening and noticed something was wrong. His brother was home. That alone was a violation of camp rules. Prisoners were assigned strict work locations, and no one moved freely. But what unsettled Shin even more was what he saw next. His mother was cooking rice. Not maize. Not cabbage soup. Rice, a food Shin almost never saw. The rice was not for him. It was for his brother. Shin had been hungry every single day of his life. Hunger was the background noise of his existence. But in that moment, it sharpened into something else: jealousy, resentment, a sense of injustice that burned hotter than fear. His mother whispered urgently. She begged his brother to hide in the mountains. She told him guards were searching. She told him they had to run. Shin did not hear hope in her voice. He heard danger. In Camp 14, knowing about a rule violation was itself a crime. Failing to report suspicious behavior could lead to punishment just as severe as committing the act. So Shin did what the camp had trained him to do. He went to his teacher. He reported his own mother and brother. Before confessing, Shin tried to negotiate. He asked for two things in return: a full meal and the title of class representative. In his world, these were enormous rewards. The teacher agreed, but the promise meant nothing. That night, security forces stormed their home. Shin's mother was dragged away. His brother was dragged away. And to Shin's shock, so was he. He was blindfolded and thrown into the back of a truck. He had no idea where they were going. He had never left the camp before. When the blindfold was removed, Shin found himself inside a building he had never seen. The camp prison. This was a prison within the prison, a place reserved for those suspected of serious political crimes. Shin was thrown into a concrete cell barely large enough to lie down. There was no light, no bedding, just cold stone and silence. The next day, guards dragged him into an interrogation room. They asked the same questions over and over again. Why did your mother plan to escape? Who helped her? What did your family plot? Shin didn't know the answers. He insisted he had reported the plan. He insisted he was loyal. It didn't matter. In Camp 14, truth is irrelevant. What followed was torture. Shin's arms and legs were bound with rope. Guards hung him from the ceiling and lit a charcoal fire beneath his bare back. As his skin burned, they lowered him closer to the flames. To stop him from squirming, they pierced his lower abdomen with a steel hook. The pain was so intense that he lost consciousness. When he woke up, he was back in a cell, this time with another prisoner. An older man. Someone who had lived long enough to remember life before the camp. For the first time in his life, Shin experienced something unfamiliar: kindness. The old man cleaned his wounds, helped him move when he was too weak, spoke to him gently. Years later, Shin would say that this was the first moment he understood that human beings could care for one another. How do you survive a place where your own family is a threat? Where you're taught that love is a weakness and loyalty is only to the guards? This is the story of Shin Dong-hyuk, the only person known to have been born in and escaped from a North Korean political prison camp. For Shin, the realization that he even had a personal thought felt dangerous. He'd spent 7 months in an underground torture cell. Then, one cold day, guards came for him. They gave him clean clothes, which usually meant one thing: execution. But instead, they released him from the cell. As he was led away, another prisoner whispered a final, crucial message: survive. Shin was taken back to an interrogation room. There, he saw his father for the first time in months. He finally understood his father had also been arrested. They were both blindfolded, loaded into a truck, and driven for hours. When the blindfolds came off, Shin saw why they'd been released. Thousands of prisoners were gathered in an open field, the execution ground. Shin and his father were forced to the front row. Then, the prisoners were dragged forward. A man and a woman, gaunt and barely recognizable. It was his brother and his mother. They were executed right in front of him. The release from the inner prison, the timing, it was all intentional. This was a punishment not just for the condemned, but for those forced to watch. Shin didn't cry. He didn't scream. In Camp 14, emotion was a death sentence. After the execution, life went on as if nothing had happened. The work quotas, the constant hunger, it all returned. One day, working in a factory, Shin accidentally dropped a sewing machine. The guards' punishment was swift. They cut off the tip of his finger. Shin later said he felt relief. Relief that it wasn't a bullet to the head. Years crawled by. Then, in 2004, a new prisoner arrived. His name was Park. Park had lived outside the camp, and he told stories that sounded like fantasy. Stories of heated homes, of television, and most importantly, of food. Real food. Chicken, meat, barbecue. For Shin, these stories were intoxicating. Not because of a desire for freedom, but because of an insatiable hunger. His motivation to escape wasn't political, it was primal. It was the dream of a full stomach. On January 2, 2005, Shin and Park were sent to collect firewood near the camp's edge, close to the high-voltage electric fence. This was their chance. When the guards were out of sight, they made a run for it. Park reached the fence first. Without a moment's hesitation, he threw his body onto the live wires. There was a bright flash. Park was electrocuted instantly, his body collapsing and pulling the wires down just enough. Shin crawled over his dead friend's body as gunshots rang out behind him. He just kept running. Never looked back. On the other side of that fence, the world felt unreal. The next morning was like stepping from a black and white film into a world of vibrant color. People walked freely. They laughed. They chose where to go. Shin stole food and clothes, learning what money was by watching others. He kept moving north until he reached the frozen Tumen River. At night, he walked across the ice into China. No one stopped him. Shin Dong-hyuk was finally free. But freedom didn't erase the past. After months of hiding and starvation, Shin made it to the South Korean consulate in Shanghai and was flown to Seoul. In this new world, he had to learn everything from scratch: how to use an elevator, read a menu, how to trust another human being. But the memories of Camp 14 followed him, a constant shadow of guilt for those left behind. Shin became a human rights activist, testifying before governments and speaking at conferences. He dedicated his life to telling the world what North Korea works so hard to hide. And yet, Camp 14 still exists. The camps still operate. So how do you survive a place like that? You don't. You endure. You obey. You become invisible, and you pray you are never noticed. Shin's story is not just one of incredible survival. It's a stark reminder that right now, as you watch this, tens of thousands of people are trapped in modern-day concentration camps. The worst thing we can do is forget they exist. Thank you for watching.